Hey guys, welcome back to another thought process video. Today I'm going to be going over a match I had with a Huntress, who is one of my favorite killers to play as, so I can kind of take that experience as a Huntress main and apply it to being a survivor. And in this video, I'm going to be going over a somewhat decent chase I had, but also touch on a lot of things that happened throughout the match, things that I feel like we could have done better, things that we did right, and just kind of talk about it as a team. I am playing in solo queue in this game, so there's no communication between me and the teammates, but still, I'll be talking about some things that kind of stand out to me. And with that being said, let's jump right in. So, we are in on the fractured cowshed. And of course, we don't know who the killer is, but we can see right there that they have corrupt intervention. And there we hear that it's a Huntress. And I hear that main is also corrupt, so I don't even look at it. I just kind of run past, and I look for a gen that's close to middle of the map, because I like to start out with one of those. And there we get a really quick down. So based on that, you can kind of guess that the Huntress is good. She hears my gen, pushes me off. So let me just go back and touch on some things here. So as I get pushed off of my gen, there are things you want to listen for with the Huntress. So that sound she makes when she raises her hatchet, and she's a 110 killer, meaning that she's slower than most killers in general, and she's even slower when she has a hatchet raised. So that's very important to keep in mind against a Huntress. And they really want you to drop pallets because it gives them an easy hit. So when you're running through a pallet and you hear her raise her hatchet, you just keep going because you're very easily going to make it around the loop before she can hit you with her hatchet. And she's extremely slow when she has her hatchet raised. So don't drop the pallet, don't give her that free hit, and you kind of have to really be on your toes and uh, almost expect her to raise her hatchet, but then in certain situations be able to react if she doesn't. So here it's just trying to break line of sight, trying to not give her a direct hit. There, it was very subtle, but I'm going to go back. You hear her lower her hatchet, and it's just like a clinking sound. So here, I'm still standing by. I know that my teammate's under a pallet, and I'm running background player. Of course, I wasn't able to get it there, but I'm still kind of testing out background player. I just cut out my audio there for a second because I had made a comment that I didn't want to include. So let's look at this situation really quick. So I'm doubling on this gen with Nicolas Cage, and we're at about 40-45% done on the gen. And then you see Kate there on a gen that's close to 80, definitely over 75. And so because I'm doubling on a gen and Kate is on a single gen with more progress, and the person just got hooked in basement, we both have time to finish our gens before going for that unhook. So the three of us can literally stay on our gens and pop 2 gens before we even try to get the unhook, which is kind of what you see. You see Kate sticking to her gen, which is good. The person's not trying to unhook themselves. There, Kate hops off her gen, and we don't really know why. We don't know if it's because she's going for the unhook, but then she gets back on. Maybe she started to go for the unhook, but then heard the terror radius and decided to get back on her gen. So Nick and I, we pop our gen, and we were able to see that the Kate was super close on her gen. So I don't know exactly where the gen is, so I'm not going to try to go finish it before getting the unhook because she's already getting close. Now, just to back it up here a little bit, several things are going on here, and I'm not really sure what the thought process was, but here you see that the Kate's being carried. Also, the terror radius is getting bigger, so it's safe to assume that the Huntress is trying to bring her to basement, so I want to get the Meg off the hook and out of basement, while the killer is still carrying another survivor. So I get that unhook, and as I'm unhooking, she drops the Kate. And you don't really know why until you get up here and realize she saw Nick get into a locker and decided to pull him instead of carrying Kate all the way to the hook. So I start healing Kate, but then realize she's already been carried for a while and is basically unhookable. Like, there's very, very little chance that the killer's able to get the Kate to a hook now that she's been carried and dropped. So I decide not to worry about trying to heal her and just to make distance. Also, here's that gen that Kate was working on. So I'm able to jump on that right away. And the only reason I switch sides there is in case the Huntress comes out of main and like comes straight toward me with a hatchet. Like, I'll be on the other side of the gen from her. So again, breaking line of sight. Now, you hear that chime go off. That means that the Huntress has a fully charged hatchet. So she has 3 speeds. When she first raises her hatchet and just immediately releases it, it's going to lob higher, but not go as far and not go as fast. If she holds it for an extra second and her arm kind of like cranks back a little bit, that's kind of stage 2, where it goes even farther, still kind of goes high and then drops. And then the fully charged hatchet creates that chime sound. So whenever you hear that against a Huntress, you know that her hatchet is fully charged and she can throw it at max speed and max distance. All right, so you kind of want to listen for that. So here I decide to go for the unhook because I don't feel like it's worth the time trying to find another gen to pressure before getting it, and I'm right there by basement anyway. So just to talk about perks real quick, what we've identified so far is Corrupt Intervention at the beginning of the match. We know she has the new alien perk, which I'm drawing a blank on the name right now. But when you check a locker, you make anyone inside your terror radius scream. Ultimate Weapon is the name of that perk. So she has that, and then because I'm running Empathy and I can see injured survivors' auras, and whenever they get downed, their aura disappears. I know that she's running knockout. So those are 3 perks that we've identified so far. The 4th one, I haven't been able to notice at this point, but because it's a Huntress, it's probably safe to assume that she has some kind of aura reading perk. So here, she decides to chase me, and notice how at the beginning of this chase, I just pre-drop this pallet. I see her red stain coming around, and I don't really know what's around me. I don't know if that's something I could have seen through the doorway as I'm coming through, but you know, you see like the combine up ahead, but there's also the Meg running in that direction, so I don't want to take the killer straight toward an injured survivor, even though I kind of am regardless. But so I don't want to go straight from the pallet. I want to kind of stay in the area, and I don't know of anything safe close by, so I'm just going to pre-drop that pallet to slow her down. All right, so I see that she's committing to me. Fake the throw. I hear that she's reloading, so I go ahead and take the window and then scream because of ultimate weapon. And then she does a good fake there, because what she actually does here, which makes it a good fake, is even though I can see her red stain through the window, I kind of committed to the vault regardless, because I wasn't expecting her to double back. But she actually turns away from the wall instead of just turning toward it, and so it kind of makes seeing her red stain through that crack a lot harder. So even though as I'm vaulting, I can tell that she is doubling back. See how she's facing away from the wall there. And then what's great about Huntress is they don't necessarily have to hit you with their hatchet, but they can zone you. So if she didn't raise her hatchet right here, I would be able to make it around the corner very easily before she caught up to me. But because she raises her hatchet, it zones me away from that wall, which then gives her time to catch up. And I try to go for the 360, but she's really patient, backs up, waits until she sees me there. So again there, I pre-dropped that pallet because depending on how she played that tile, she could mind game me and bait me into dropping the pallet and then get a free hit over it. Now this is tricky because I don't really know where my teammates are. You know, I see the aura of the Meg who's still injured off there in the distance, and you know you see that Kate is doubling on that gen with her, but I basically just saw that right now because I paused the video and I can see, like, when you're in the thick of chase and you're just trying to stay alive, it's kind of hard to be looking around at auras off in the distance, stuff like that. So I break, or she breaks this pallet right here, and I start making distance, and I realize that there is just nothing off that direction, right? Now, what information do I have to go off of? There's a gen right here that's already popped. There's a tile right there with the pallet already down. But I also know that 2 gens are close to popping, and I haven't been hooked yet, and my teammates are in the opposite direction. So all I'm really trying to do now, instead of trying to stay alive as long as possible, I'm trying to go down in a good spot so that when she picks and hooks, it wastes a lot of her time before she's able to get to my teammates. So, these are split-second decisions that I'm trying to make while also trying to find a tile that I can loop. And in that moment, I decide that my best option is just to get as far away as possible. So there, I was able to kind of fake her out. Now, notice here, I can see her red stain through the wall. And I try to FOV tech her, and of course there's that knockout. And my teammates just pop 2 gens. Now, as of right now, we're actually in a pretty good spot. Each survivor's been hooked once. 1 person's injured, 2 people are healthy. And Nicolas Cage had started on a gen. Now, I'm not sure why he jumped off. It's possible that he was working on the gen in main and heard her terror radius and saw where she hooked me and decided to leave. Now he's getting chased and he gets downed with knockout, because if it was a hatchet I'd still be able to see her aura, or see his aura on the ground. So I know when he gets downed it was an M1 because it's knockout. So then we see Kate. Kate starts on a gen. The Meg was actually getting chased, which you don't see her chase icon because the Huntress is chasing her from so far away, but throwing hatchets, obviously. And so here, I'm just gonna get the Nicolas Cage up. We're on the other side of a rock from where the Huntress hooked, so if she starts, like, throwing hatchets, she won't be able to hit us. So here I get on this gen because I saw that Nicolas Cage was running in the direction of the hook. So I'm like, okay, Nicolas Cage is getting the unhook, which he does. The Kate has Kindred, so I'm trying to take advantage of that, but she's just outside of the range, gets that hit on me. And now I'm just trying to pull the killer away from the hook so that my teammate can go get it. So, just basically just holding W. I passed by a few pallets, but again, pallets are tricky with the Huntress. Then I realize people aren't actually getting the unhook, and I still have a hook to afford, so if I'm able to trade, I want to do that, because I don't want my teammate to die. As you can see, barely get that unhook. Just look at how close that bar is. Like, she is 2 frames away from being dead. But I'm able to get that unhook. Now, notice we've been at 1 gen for quite a while now, and the pressure has just completely died, right? That's one of those hits that I'd like a ref to take a look at, because I was behind her when she hit me, but it is what it is. Now, what's interesting about the way this Huntress is playing is she seems to be, like, trying to play fair in a way, because she's not just, like, hard tunneling by just immediately picking the same person that got off hook, but she's also applying pressure, which is smart. You know, if you can have one person on hook and one person down at any given time, that's huge pressure. So she downs me, she goes back, downs the Kate again, but then doesn't pick her right away. She actually comes and picks me, which I have a hook that I can afford. Which is kind of, it's smart, but also, like, she's not being a jerk about it. So I noticed the Nick is like 99% healed, but he insists on healing me first, which could just mean that he has like resilience or something. But there you see me top off his heal right before he gets hit. So the timing on that was really interesting. So I just give him that quick tap, and then he immediately gets injured again. And then the Kate goes down. There you see Meg barely starting on a gen. So there you hear the chime. So we know that this Huntress has a tendency to slug and then chase somebody else, whoever's in the area, you know, just trying to get as much pressure as possible. She definitely saw me run off in this direction, and so as I slow vault this window, I hear the chime, and I think, well, maybe she's gonna throw a hatchet in my direction, so I want to kind of crouch there for a second. Now I see that Meg is working on her gen, and I'm running inner healing, so I'm looking for a totem. There I see a totem. And at a certain point, you know, you definitely want to like maintain that pressure on gens, but once you get to Death Hook, it becomes a lot more important to stay healed. Now, see, it's interesting there that she doesn't commit to me, even though I'm injured on Death Hook. She still goes for Nicolas Cage, who still has an extra hook. I don't know if that's intentional or not, or if she's just trying to like spread out hooks evenly and, you know, not like blatantly tunnel. Even though if she hooked me, like it wouldn't be tunneling. She'd already chased somebody else anyway. So, you know, not really sure what that thought process is. Maybe she just feels confident in how much pressure she already has. You know, there's a lot of factors involved in what her decision making could be. So here, I don't know if she's camping or not, so I'm kind of trying to play it cautious. You know, once you get on Death Hook, you kind of want to just play as cautiously as possible. Meg gets back on a gen. Don't know if it's the same gen as before. So she hits him. He still has endurance, and I know this over here is just a dead zone. But again, just trying to take the killer as far away from my teammates as possible. And then I start getting humped on the ground, which is always a nice way to end a match. But there you see Meg is almost 50% on her gen. And Nicolas Cage is using Plot Twist to heal up. And that's it for me. I go up to the sky to meet the entity. So yeah, and then I recorded the video before I actually saw what perk she was running, so unfortunately I can't tell you what her fourth perk was, but if any of you noticed anything in there to suggest what that fourth might be, feel free to leave it in the comments. That would be an interesting little Easter egg. If anyone noticed something that I missed, just watching that video again. But yeah, overall, we did really well with gen pressure right up until we got down to one gen, and then it just kind of fell apart. And I did notice there were times where people were just kind of running around aimlessly. You know, it's always hard to tell like what their priority is at that moment. There were definitely times where I was running around doing something that I felt like was more important in that moment than trying to find a gen. We also may have somewhat three-genned ourselves. I saw the two gens right there by main, but I'm not entirely sure where that tile was with the third gen. I know I started on it at one point, but then got chased off right away. So that was definitely another factor, which in the chaos of things can be difficult to keep track of when you're not on comms with your team. So definitely a few things we could have done differently there. We really needed one of those center gens done early. But yeah, and there my video just reached to its end because I kept talking. So I'll wrap that up and thank you all for watching. Now go be a menace.